Kajang! A Guitar Story, The Jimmy. I think that every guitarist in the world knows who this man is. Well, every guitarist, that is, except me. Oh sure, I knew that the guy was a groovy hippie who played the Star-Spangled Banner on electric guitar and was fond of noisy, wheelie stuff, but not in knowing him the way a guitarist would. I only got to know this man and his musical genius on the year, wait for it, 2017. Yep, I was in some kind of Hendrix hole where I didn't poke my head out until 2017 when I took a peek at the man and his music. The irony here is that decades ago, I already liked the song Little Wing, but it was this guy's version, with the guitar played by this guy, Hiram Bullock. In fairness, even after knowing Jimmy, Hiram's solo is also good, in my book. Maybe I was intimidated by Jimmy, just as I was intimidated by Eddie Van Halen and the other guitar greats. The we're not worthy thing. Just because I'm an avid guitar hobbyist doesn't mean I'm a good guitarist. Being a hobbyist only needs passion, but to have good guitar chops, I need practice. I was of the mind that I didn't have the cred to have a left-handed white Strat until I could play at least one of Jimmy's songs. So I did learn some of his songs, and in the process, I discovered that the man was a genius. We all have different reasons for admiring artists, and I admired Jimmy for blurring the line between rhythm and lead, for being a pioneer in creating texture, and for being innovative, like mixing elements of funk into rock and the blues. The best way to know a musician is to learn his music, and in learning Jimmy's songs, I got to know the legend. Having caught the Hendrix bug, I decided to make a Jimmy Strat. Now I've done a video about this before, but I think this project deserves a revisit and a better video. I started out with this guitar, which was a poor copy of a Fender Stratocaster. I had bought this in a hurry at a time when I didn't know anything about electric guitars. The neck was terrible and the frets were dead. Being my first Strat, this guitar became my testbed for fixing Strats, refrets, setups, neck angles, and demystifying Strats in general. With Gibsons, life is simple. You buy a Gibson and then you play it. Life is a bit more complicated with a Strat. Leo Fender's concept of a modular electric guitar has its pros and cons. On the bright side, with a Fender, we have an extremely customizable guitar. On the downside, because of this, it's a bit more complex to set up right. With the Strat, we can swap out parts to our heart's content. But with all this swapping comes the burden of getting everything right. However, with this lousy Strat copy, while the neck was almost hopeless, there was nothing wrong with the body and the pickups. Now almost every pickup maker has a version or two of Jimmy's pickups, But the cheap pickups that came with my piece of was okay, meaning for lousy Strat copy, its pickups held up well against other branded pickups. Also, I figured there was really no point in chasing after that unique Strat chime if that tone had to go through a wah, a univibe, a fuzz, an Octavia, and a cranked up Marshall. Subtlety is not one of the finer points of the Hendrix tone. I did swap out the middle pickup for one that I got out of a Highway 1 Strat. Yes, it was sacrilegious. Pulling out a pickup from a fairly okay made in USA Fender Stratocaster to install into a Strat copy. Yes, I'm weird that way. And then I got a lefty maple neck from China. Fun fact, if we get a lefty neck and play it right-handed, we'll have to put in new side dot markers because the default markers are now at the bottom. I did this by making holes on the side with a pointy tool, marked the holes with pencil, and filled the holes with super glue. Definitely not luthier quality, but it worked. Somehow, I was able to get a righty mint green pickguard with a bridge pickup jimmified, meaning the bridge pickup is angled in reverse. Now, nerd alert number 1. If you were to play a right-handed guitar left-handed, just like Jimmy did, he would do it this way, and then he would have his top thickest string here and the thinnest string here. However, the magnets for the pickups would be reversed. So in the right-handed orientation, the magnet that was meant to be for the thickest string when playing left-handed would be the magnet for the thinnest string. So if you want to jimmify your right-handed Stratocaster, you would have to invert this the other way so that the slug or the magnet meant for the thickest string would now be on the thinnest string. However, that would be only applicable if, like in some old and new Strat pickups, your slugs were staggered, meaning they're of different heights, like you see here, then that would be relevant. However, if you had pickups with flat or even slugs, then that would not be relevant. Now, Jimmy played pickups that had staggered poles, so the right thing to do if you were going to reverse this was to also invert the pickups that way so that the orientation will be correct. Now, I don't know how much impact that has on tone, but if you want to nerd it out, then that's the way to go. And so I inverted the pickups also, even if my magnets were flat. However, all this inverting got my head into a spin, and I accidentally wired the selector in reverse, meaning that the lowest selector switch setting controlled the neck pickup instead of the bridge pickup. Since I was lazy to redo the electronics, I left it like that. Also, in the wiring, I think the capacitor detached so the tone controls don't work, and I left it like that also. Maybe someday I'll go in and fix the electronics, but for now, I'm playing the Jimmy as it is. I haven't seen much of Jimmy's playing in videos, but I never saw him fiddle with the tone controls. I've seen him setting fire to his Strat, but adjusting the tone, I don't remember. Sometimes he'd back the volume off a bit, but not the tone. At the time I put Jimmy together, I could only find 3 tone knobs and no volume, so the knobs go tone, tone, tone. Another nerd alert for those of us who really want to go all the way. Jimmy's string gauges were 10, 13, 15, 26, 32, and 38. To create this set out of commercial sets, we'll have to buy the set for 8s, 9s, and 10s. Did I follow this string setup? Well, not really. I kind of approximated the gauges with some spare strings lying around. The reason why Jimmy did this was that the G string was particularly loud with strats, which had something to do with the string thickness and the fact that the G pole piece was the highest one. For the science of it, the output of the strings is dependent on the square of the diameter of the strings. The standard G string on a set of 10s is a big jump from the B string, and with this, strats generally have louder tones with the G string. Now, who said that guitarists don't need math? As a side note, we can look up Roger Mayer, a pedal maker who ran around with Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Jimi Hendrix, and he has a lot of interesting stories about these artists, including their gear. And finally, I used a Vox VT40X with a little gain, Ottawa, and a phaser in the amp settings. So do all of these Jimmy settings contribute to the tone, like reversing the string tension and orientation of the pickups? Honestly, I don't know. I find it hard to discern differences in tone with all the gain, fuzz, and wah going on. While in my head I had tones like Jimmy, other people may disagree and that's fine. Perhaps these little gimmicks have some minor effect on the tone, but I think that the most important part of the Hendrix tone is to play like the man. I admit that I didn't learn Jimmy note for note, but I've studied his songs enough to understand his style and know a few of his tricks. Oh, by the way, Jimmy plays in E-flat tuning, meaning one notch lower than the standard E tuning. I'm too lazy to adjust the tuning, so I just play in standard tuning. I think we can mod the guitar all we want, but for me, to sound like Jimmy is to play like Jimmy. But just to nerd out, here's a comparison of the Jimmy Strat and a standard white Strat. It is an unscientific comparison with everything being different, including strings, pickups, electronics, but this may help us decide if all those little changes amount to any effect on tone. To my ears, the other Strat sounds more balanced, but there's also nothing wrong with the tone of the Jimmy. And honestly, I play Hendrix songs on any guitar, not just the Jimmy. Still, I'm happy that I undertook the Jimmy project because this guitar opened a whole new world of the man and his music to me. In my opinion, I can't have a Jimmy Strat if I didn't know any Hendrix songs. I saw a lefty Strat once at a luthier. It was in the process of being finished, and I said to myself, that guitarist better know how to play a Hendrix song to deserve that guitar. And now I've learned Voodoo Child, Little Wing, All Along the Watchtower, A Little Fred House, and Hey Joe. Did the guitar inspire the learning, or did the songs inspire the guitar? I guess it went both ways. As a critique on the build, the electronics need a bit more work, but I'm taking my time because it sounds okay. And I usually play with the tone in full and on positions 2 and 4, so that the effects don't have too much impact on my playing. The action is good, it plays fast, and there are no quirks, and it sounds like a late 60s or 70s Strat, which sounds a bit harsher than the early to mid 60s Strats. Does the Jimmy play exclusively Hendrix songs? Of course not. Like any other guitar, it comes into rotation during practice. Like most guitar projects, this is a work in progress, and maybe one day I'll change the pickups or fix the electronics, but it's fine the way it is now. I see no need for an urgent replacement of anything. So I'm happy that I built Jimmy, especially from its origins as a lousy guitar to being one of my favorite guitars.